So last year in my garden, I didn't harvest as much as I wanted to, and I ended up having a lot of dead space in my garden. So this year I want to have a very organized garden. I want to plan it from how I lay out my garden to how I put my crops in, when I put my crops in, when I harvest them, and then I want to have another crop going. As soon as I pull, say, spinach out, I want something else going in there. In this video, I'm going to teach you guys everything I did to plan my garden for next year. And at the end of the video, I'm going to throw a template that you guys can take and you guys can use for yourself for your garden plans. Stick around, I think you'll like what I got for you. My name is Devin Sabraw. My channel is Prepping to Survive, and I'm here to help you live a simple, safe, and happy life. Just like planning anything in life, whether you're driving a car or you're scheduling your workday, planning will help increase your success rate. In regards to gardening, it'll help you get more crops out of your garden through your growing season. It'll help eliminate dead space. You'll get better crops, and you can keep track of everything you're growing much easier. For my garden plan, I'm going to be using the square foot gardening method, which will help with how many plants you can fit in your garden, and it's going to be a lot easier for you guys to understand. So there are a few things you'll need to do before you can plan your garden. The first thing you need to do is find out your last frost date. You can do this by going to almanac.com and typing in your zip code, your city, your postal code, and that'll tell you an average last frost date. Second, you'll need to know what you can plant in your area. So if you go to Google and you type in seed starting date, it'll take you to another almanac.com website where you can find seeds you can start indoors, you can transplant, or you can start them outdoors. Plus, another amazing thing with the website is it'll give you cool weather crops and warm weather crops. So you can plan your garden for your spring crops and for your fall crops. The third and last thing is you need to measure the size of your garden. So whether it's an in-ground bed or a raised garden bed, you need to measure the width and the length, and that will decide how many crops you can fit in your garden space. The next step is to decide how much you want to grow. So I wanted to break it down into per person. So I've got my wife and my 14-month-old son, plus myself, so roughly 2.5 people. So I wanted to break it down per person, and across all the websites, there isn't really a one number fits all kind of thing. So what I did was I took all the websites average per person and I threw it into the spreadsheet that I'll be putting into the description and giving it at the very end of this video. For my family, I want to grow spinach, leaf lettuce, carrots, tomatoes, beans, broccoli, kale, cucumbers, and garlic. And I want to grow enough for all three of us. So that's what I'll be doing in this video. So now that you know what you want to grow and how much you want to grow, the next step is to take your garden measurements that you did prior and throw them either on a piece of paper, so draw them up on a piece of paper, or put them into what I am doing, a Google spreadsheet, with each square in the Google spreadsheet being 1 square foot. So for the square foot gardening method, I'm going to throw a spreadsheet with average crops here, then do simple math and figure out how many that adds up. So if you have 3 or 4 different squares you're going to use, then add that square up. If it's 1 leaf lettuce head, then you'll have 4 of them. But for spinach, it's 9, so 9 times 4. So what I did was I drew my garden beds out on a piece of paper, but then I transferred it over to Google Sheets. And I find Google Spreadsheets, you can save it for pretty much, you won't lose a piece of paper. You can save the Google Spreadsheets for a lot longer. It's also easier to share online than giving someone a piece of paper. That's my method. You guys can do whatever you feel like doing for keep staying organized and planning your garden. So the next step is going to be starting to plan when you're going to plant your seeds, how you're going to start them. So if you go on to Google and you type in planting calendar, go to the same almanac.com planting calendar, and this will give you the crops you can grow in your area, and it'll give you if you can start them indoors, transplant them, or start them outdoors, and it'll give you dates on every single category. At the bottom of the Google spreadsheet, I've kind of organized them at the very bottom, put the last frost date in one spot, and then figured out if I have to do it indoors or outdoors. And everything I want to grow for that year, I just write them down, and then right beside it I'll put if it's a direct sow or if it's a transplant, so a DS or TP. Also, how many days it takes to harvest. I find that's very useful for you to when to plant it, to cropping, taking harvest out, and then planting something else in its place. This is when you take your spinach plants out and plant something such as beans, which is a warm weather crop. And remember, after each time you take your crop out and you're gonna put another one in, put some compost, some organic material, put that down over top. That'll add nutrients back into the soil, so you're not gonna deplete your soil over the summer and get less and less crops over your growing season. Well, that about wraps it up, you guys. So taking you step by step on how I've planned my garden this year. I didn't do this last year. I'm fairly new at gardening in general, but I thought if I got organized, it would help. Obviously, I won't know until the end of this season, but for now, thank you for watching. See you guys in the next video. Here are some key points that you guys should keep in mind. Keep your taller crops on the north side of your garden, so it's not gonna shade anything in front of it. So the sun will be from the south, shining to the north. So if you have your taller crops at the back, shorter at the front, nothing's gonna be blocked. No sunlight's gonna be blocked. Some of your taller plants are gonna be tomatoes, cucumbers, peas, eggplants, okras, corn, pole beans, Brussels sprouts, artichokes, and asparagus. Those are all gonna be taller crops, so those will be on the north side. Rooted crops are usually smaller and not as tall, so put that at the front or the furthest south side.